Hello and welcome to the Irish Constitution Hour. We are back, and I am your host, Josh for Canada. Joining me is my co-host, Sarah from ERA. Sarah, I'm sending you a co-host invite just now. If you can accept that, that would be great. And our constitutional analyst, Mr. Mark Anthony. This here is our fifth episode of the 12-part treatise of the 1937 bunꞃeŠonn. Today's episode is another banger, if you will, because it's focused in on the national flag and national language of ERA, specifically Articles 8, 25, and 63. There is a common lace that unites these articles, and today we will expound on that lace and its consequences. And remember that the information shared here today is derived from original sources. It's not to be interpreted as lawful or legal advice, but if you would like to see a full list of these sources, you can visit this excellent website, bunꞃeŠonn1937.ie. We'll put that website up in the Jumbotron or Nest, whatever it may be. We'll put it in the bubble as well. And if you'd like to follow along, there is a PDF of the bunꞃeŠonn 1937 that we will include in the bubble and in the Nest as well. You can click on that, and as we are going through these articles, you can follow along. To begin this episode, I will hand the mic over to my co-host, Sarah from ERA, who will provide a baseline of facts regarding the articles of the bunꞃeŠonn 1937, of which we'll be discussing today. Sarah, take it away.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. So far, we've covered the preamble to the Irish Constitution. We have covered Articles 1, 2, and 3, the nation. Next comes the state, and we've covered Articles 4, 5, and 6 so far, where we've looked at the name of the state, its status as a sovereign and independent, and the power of the government versus the power of the people, the overall authority of the people. Today, we're going to look at Articles 7 and 8, and as Josh says, there are a few other articles that intertwine with these. So Article 7 of the Irish Constitution declares the national flag as a tricolour of green, white and orange. The colours represent the nationalist and unionist communities, with white symbolising the aspiration for peace and unity between the two. The Irish tricolour was first introduced in 1948 by Thomas Francis Maher, who was inspired by the French Republic's tricolour, seeing it as a symbol for freedom and equality. The Irish tricolour was raised during various Irish rebellions and became widely adopted after the 1916 Easter Rising, when the tricolour was raised above the GPO for 3 consecutive days. It became recognised as a symbol of Irish independence. It was in 1937 that the Irish tricolour was formally adopted as the national flag. The tricolour, our national emblem, serves as a symbol of the country's identity, values and history. It also conveys the nation's sovereignty and independence on the international stage. Article 8 declares the Irish language to be the national language and the principal official language. The English language is recognised as the second official language. And just to highlight at this stage, guys, Article 25 Point 4 and point 5, they talk about bills being passed and brought out in both languages. And Article 63 states if there's ever conflict between the two texts, the Irish text takes supremacy. So that shows you that the Irish language text is superior. So a country's own language is a vital part of its cultural heritage and identity. Not only does it carry the history, traditions and values of the people, it also plays an important role in expressing and maintaining the nation's sovereignty and independence. The Irish language, being the first official language, allows the nation to maintain autonomy over its legal framework and governance, distinct from external forces. So it's very important, guys, that we're aware that our language, it has its place, and we must remember where it stands in law. All right. And I suppose just to highlight at this stage, the first president of ERA was Douglas Hyde, and he was an Irish linguistic and scholar, and he was the co-founder of the Gaelic League in 1893. And their goals, the Gaelic League's goals, was to revive the Irish language and culture, and to use it as a way to resist British rule, to promote Irish folklore, to encourage the use of Irish in everyday life, and to campaign for Irish to be included in the school curriculum. So the Gaelic League played a very important part in the revival of the Irish language and Gaeilgeoir activism. And most recently, on the 1st of January 2022, the Irish language gained full status as an official language of the European Union. This means that Irish will have equal status with the other 23 official languages of the EU. And all documents published by the EU must be translated into Irish. So there's a phrase here that people may be aware of. A country without its language is a country without its soul. And that's an interpretation of the Irish proverb, Tír dan Teanga, Tír dan Anam, which directly translates to a country without language, a country without soul. It essentially means that a nation's language is deeply intertwined with its identity and cultural heritage, and losing it would be like losing a vital part of its essence. And this proverb is often attributed to Patrick Pearse, a prominent figure in the Irish independence movement. It is widely used by Irish language activists to emphasise the importance of preserving and promoting the Irish language. And while rooted in Irish culture, the sentiment can be applied to any nation where language is seen as a key pillar of identity. I'll hand it back to you now, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah, for that excellent overview and providing us some great insight on the Gaelic League and Patrick Pearse. We're now going to introduce our constitutional analyst, Mr. Mark Anthony. If you're unfamiliar with Mr. Anthony, he's a native man from the Irish Constitutional Republic of ERA. He's a land protector, constitutional analyst, and political activist. Mark Anthony is the co-creator of the website bunrak1937.ie, Irish Law for Irish People. Thank you for joining us today, Mark. How you doing?
Thanks for having me again, folks. Doing good today. Sunday. It's wet here. But anyway, today is very important. Sarah Jane, I just want a wee correction there. You said 1948. It was 1848 Francis Maher, okay? Just maybe a slip of the tongue, okay? Sure, you meant 1848. So the Irish flag, it outdates the state, you know? And we talk about the language there. So when the deep-rootedness to the culture and traditions, well, that's Article 1. The Irish nation hereby affirms its inalienable, indefeasible and sovereign right to choose its own form of government, to determine its relations with other nations, and to develop its life, political, economic, cultural, in accordance with its own genius and traditions. So, the Irish language being the first national official language, principal language, as the literal translation of Mícheál Ó Corúil, a study of the Irish text, bunrak commissioned by Brian Lenihan, it says the Irish language is the first national official principal language. Sax Burla is only accepted as a second official language. That's 8.2. What happened? Well, the constitution upon which we're speaking about, bun:eŠ, which was enacted by the people on the 29th of December, is written in cloggailach. That's Irish font. So that is the Irish language text, the original Irish language text. And that's what we're speaking about. And that is protected. The language and the text is protected in numerous articles throughout the Constitution. So you would have Article 8, and that's the state. So that comes within the state. So the state has declared that Irish language, the spoken language, is the first national official principal language. But yet it is not it is not mandatory to be taught in Irish schools. That should be taught as the first language that they learn in school, and not English. You know, on Irish soil, because Padraig Pearse and Douglas Hyde set up the Gaelic League to preserve the Irish language, because that is the essence of the deep rootedness which traces back millennia, 2.5, 3 millennia. That language dates back. So that outdates the state, and that's what makes the language itself is so powerful. And that's why when they wrote the drafters of the Constitution the first draft Constitution, which was passed by the people on the 1st of July 1937. But the influence of the politics and the language of the 1937 being very much Eamon de Valera and Fianna Fáil's constitution, as against the pro-treaty 1922 constitution, must be borne in mind. We shall see below with regards to the script and orthography, the way it is written. There was a deliberate return to the pre-1922 period, and that appears to be in some cases paralleled in the language itself, the language text. So the Constitution of Dáil Éireann 1919 was given in Irish alone in the minutes of the proceedings of the first session, 21st of January 1919. bun:eŠ Dáil Éireann, that was written in cloggailach. And that's why the drafters of the 1937 used that language, because that brought you back into the Irish Republic that was declared and proclaimed. Everything else was British. So that, through the text alone, brought us in there. But as I said there last week, Ireland, the word Ireland and everything Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Ireland, is a Crown copyright. That's owned by the Crown. Anything Ireland. That's why it was specifically named Éire in the cloggailach font. And since the First Amendment and the Second Amendment of the Constitution, the First Amendment was emergency powers, 2nd of September 1939. The Second Amendment was a change of the text. They changed it, but they didn't say that there at the time. So this is what they wrote in the 1942 inside page. This text of the Constitution is a copy of the text, prepared in accordance with Article 25 and enrolled in the office of the Registrar of the Supreme Court on the 25th day of March 1942. The transitionary provisions in Articles 51 to 63 inclusive, which continue to have the force of law, are however omitted from the official text in accordance with the terms in Articles 51 and 52. The text embodies all the amendments of the Oireachtas prior to the date of the enrolment. The amendments were effective and by the date set out here under. So that was the 30th of May 1941, the Second Amendment. and they give a standardized Irish, which is a lesser form, and it's a Roman font. So it is. I have it here, where it says that it is a Roman font. There. So the standardization of the Irish text, I'm taking this here from the Irish Constitution, J.M. Kelly, 2nd edition, 1984. The standardization of the Irish text. Texts of the Constitution have from time to time prepared, signed, and enrolled under these subsections, which may be called successive additions to the Constitution, have embodied not only the amendments of the Constitution to date, but also, in the case of the Irish text, a change to Roman type from the Gaelic type used in the draft originally enacted. Now, the draft originally enacted, I have that original draft, but he didn't talk about the Constitution originally enacted. That is also Clo Gaelic. Enacted and a standardized spelling, orthography, and even minor respects grammar, whether changes of kind are permissible in the view of existence of subsections expressly dealing with the additions of the Constitution, but not mentioning such alterations as these, is uncertain. So almost all bills are introduced and passed and promulgated as acts in English alone. In English alone. With, as Article 25.4.4 requires, an official Irish translation. Such official translation enjoys no such preference in case of conflict between texts, as would the Irish text of a law which has been passed in both official languages. Such laws, however, are exceedingly rare. The only examples to date being the 2nd to the 8th Amendments of the Constitution Acts 1941 to 1983 and the Republic of Ireland Act 1948. Legislation in Irish alone tends to be confined to bills concerning the Gaeltacht and the Irish language. It's very, very important, people, because they're not writing things in Clo Gaelic font. They haven't done so since 1983. So how can it be law as pursuant to Article 63? A copy of this Constitution signed by the Taoiseach, the Chief Justice and the Chairman of Dáil Éireann shall be enrolled in the office of the Registrar of the Supreme Court, and such signed copy will be conclusive evidence of the provisions of this Constitution, the Clo Gaelic one, in case of conflict between the Irish and the English texts. The Irish text will prevail or take supremacy, as it says in the Irish text. The Irish text takes supremacy. The language is the first national official principal language, and yet the #1 language on this island, spoken and taught in schools, is English, and that's only accepted as a second language, a second official language. You know, we're doing a great job as an Irish people in preserving what was left to us, because written in Clo Gaelic on the Garden of Remembrance wall is a poem called The Vision. And at the end of it says, "O generations of the vision." No, "O generations of the freedom." Sorry. "O generations of the freedom." That's us. We're living in the free times that they fought hard for and won. "O generations of the freedom, remember us, the generations of the vision. They had a vision, and they knew that any other font other than Gaelic would be, all roads lead to Rome. So they give us a Roman font, a standardized, bastardized version of our text and language. And the people accepted that. But in law, the Irish text written in Gaelic takes supremacy over everything. That is a fact. That is a fact, and that is their biggest Achilles heel in the judiciary. They fear people coming in and being able to prove this beyond doubt because there is conflicts within it. You want to come in there, George?
Yes, please. I just want to point out this vision as it relates to the Gaelic League, because this is something of which I've come across in my reading since we've started this enterprise. The Gaelic League, founded by Douglas Hyde and Owen McNeill, with the express purpose of keeping Irish alive, restore Irish as the spoken language. And I just have a quote from Mr. Douglas Hyde that I've written down. And what he said was, by giving up our native language, we had thrown away the best claim we had upon the world's recognition of us as a separate nation. So in the present day, Mark, how does the world, and how does quite possibly the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland recognize the spoken language?
Great question. Well, coincidentally, on the 1st of January 2022, the Irish language gained full status as an official language of the European Union. This means the Irish will have equal status with the other 23 official languages of the EU. So that's only 3 years ago. They're just passed on New Year's Day. So the EU and other 23 other countries, even in 2022 now, we're in equal power, equal status to language. But yet on this island where we reside, people call it Ireland instead of Era. As written in the Constitution, we are a constitutional republic. That is the rule of law for the land. To call it anything else, well, that's ignorance of law. That's ignorance of law. And if you know anything about text, Ireland is written in italics. That means it's a description. Ireland came in an act in 1949, the Ireland Act 1949. All acts are subject to judicial review. All acts and legislation are subject to judicial review under Article 15.4 of the Constitution, which would state, just a wee second, folks, 15.4, the Oireachtas shall not enact any law which is in any respect repugnant to this Constitution or any law enacted by the Oireachtas, which is in any respect repugnant to this Constitution or any provision thereof, shall, but to the extent only of such repugnancy, be invalid. The Irish language in the north of Ireland, which was created through partition of the island, really through the Government of Ireland Act 1920, and that was ratified on the 6th of December 1922 via Searstad Éireann and the Irish Free State of the Constitution of the Irish Free State 1922 was an oath to the King, subjugation to the Crown of England and the Crown Establishment and the British Empire. That's what that was. So since the creation of that unionist statelet, the 6 counties in the north, they didn't take Ulster, the full 9 counties, they took 6 counties, the far northeast: Tyrone, Down, Derry, Antrim, Armagh, leaving out one there, whatever, you know, but that's what they took here up in the north. And that was the creation of a unionist statelet called Northern Ireland. Now, how official is Northern Ireland? Well, I can ask anybody in here. I come from so-called Northern Ireland, right? Legally speaking. But lawfully speaking, I come from the territory era in the north of it. What does that mean, like? Well, in 100 years since that there, our voting, we hadn't one man, one vote in 1969. That's why Bloody Sunday happened in Derry. Catholics couldn't get a vote, right? There was gerrymandering and all going on. We couldn't get a vote. So they went to war. And since then they gave up the Armalite and took up a ballot paper. And they went and set up institutions under the British Crown, the Stormont institutions. And since then, the nationalists and Catholic community have taken full control of Stormont, full control of the councils, and they are the largest return party in Westminster. They hold the largest seat in the electoral seat in Westminster, and they have candidates, that's Sinn Féin, and they have candidates in Europe. And that there's since really 1982, 83, since they started running in the elections and going really for the ballot, in what would you call it, sitting down in negotiation, you know what I mean, leaving the arms out to get rid of the arms in 1998. So since then, we have now the Irish language in the north here, the traditions in the north are on a what would you call it, a massive revival. It never ever went away, but it's everywhere. My signage, and I live in Mid-Ulster, my signage is Irish first, English second. And that's all over Mid-Ulster and South Derry and places like that there. All the signage has now been changed. The bun:e:schools started out with one mobile unit for a classroom. They now have a full school with 2 classes each in my town, and it's bursting at the seams. I can walk out my front door and the children next door to me, the 3 of them, talking Irish. Irish is alive and well in the north. Irish dancing, GAA, all those traditions. And I'll tell you this, another Irish sport is rounders. It's hurling, camogie, football, and rounders. That's the sports, the national sports, the national athletics, as they call them. And they are alive and well in the north. And I can see it dying out in the south, the so-called Republic of Ireland.
Mark, to that point of Irish culture dying in the south, when we spoke last, I believe we had talked about Dublin City in particular and how there are traces of Anglicization all over the city of Dublin. And back to the Gaelic League, their focus was on de-Anglicization, which was to refuse the immediate the implementation of English in language, literature, music, games, dress, ideas. And just to your point about the difference of the North and South, would you like to focus in on Dublin City and sort of the marks of England all over, right under the noses of the Irish people, that sort of, in my mind, are just it's a legacy of embarrassment. I don't know why this has been unaddressed, but would you like to expound on that?
Well, how many streets, avenues, etc. in Dublin are named after English towns, cities, etc.? Give the full list of examples. Now, they call Dublin the Pale, Little Britain. In the Magna Carta, they changed London to Dublin. They changed England to Ireland. That's the only changes in the 1217 Magna Carta Hibernia, the Great Charter of Ireland. That's in the statutory books, by the way. The Irish statutory books still to this day. That's where we get our common law jurisdiction. But anyway, I'll get back to that. How many streets and avenues, etc. in Dublin are named after English towns, cities, etc.? Give a full list of examples. While a precise count isn't readily available, a significant number of streets in Dublin are named after towns and cities, with notable examples including Oxford Street, Cambridge Street, London Street, Manchester Street, Birmingham Street, Liverpool Street, York Street, Chester Street, highlighting the historical influence of British rule in Ireland during the naming of these streets. Prevalence. While the streets may bear English names, it's important to remember a large portion of the city's street name also reflect Irish heritage and figures. Yes, there's statues and that up, you know what I mean, and you have Parnell Street and whatnot. But if we went through 700 years of oppression, a hunger, a starvation, a genocide of an Irish people, a coffin ship sent across the Atlantic Ocean to Canada, America, across the Pacific to Australia and places like that. Why in Ireland's capital, Eira's capital, have we got so much historical British influence still to this day, including Crown courts, including the Crown establishment? Now, I can prove it. Garda McD of Wexford Garda Station was on a phone call to a friend of mine one time, and it was recorded. And he was looking a pulse number for a certain thing that happened in a court, and the guard wouldn't give it. And his reply was to my friend, "You accused the Crown establishment of putting personages on a living man." My friend says, "No, I proved it." He says, "This is being recorded, by the way." Sergeant McD says, "Good, I hope it is." He says, "You accused the Crown establishment of putting personages on a living man." My friend went into a court and the judge was sitting under the sovereign seal of Eire with the tricolour to her right hand side. And she was asked, "Is this a constitutional court of record? And are we in the territory Eire?" And her reply was yes. She was asked, "Do the rules of civil procedure apply to a living man or woman?" Which those provisions are in the Constitution. And she says, "Is it within the provisions of the Constitution?" "No, they are not." "Well then, no, it doesn't." Rules of civil procedure is Roman civil procedure. Legalese, all that. All requires consent of the governed. So we are currently under British rule, under Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and Northern Ireland. And under Eire, we are a sovereign, independent, democratic state with indefeasible, inalienable, and sovereign rights, anti-sending and superior to all positive law. It's now about figuring out who, what, and where you are, people. I'm an Irish national. I'm not a nationalist. That's somebody trying to achieve nationalism. We already achieved nationhood in 1916. We already achieved nationhood. So we are the Irish nation. All of it. Eire. Where am I?
Mark.
Where am I? Well, I'm in Eire. What is it? It's the Irish Republic. It's the Irish Republic, not the Republic of Ireland. How did we go from the Irish Republic to the Republic of Ireland? I cannot get a passport for Northern Ireland. I live in Northern Ireland. I have an Irish passport and it says Airneck Irish, and you can hold a British one, but you cannot get a passport for Northern Ireland. Therefore, Northern Ireland is a statelet. It's a fiction in people's minds. It has no legal bias. The same as the Republic of Ireland. It is merely a description of the state. It is not the name, the official name of the state, constitutionally speaking. Republic of Ireland, show me a constitution for the Republic of Ireland. Show me a constitution for the Northern Ireland. You cannot do it. I can show you a constitution for Eora. Still in all the blue books, Article 4, although they use the Roman font. The only one with the Clode Gaelic font is the draft constitution, which approved by the people and passed by the people on the 1st of July. I have a copy. And the original constitution, we have a copy.
Mark, before you jump in there, Sarah, Mark has made the point here that Northern Ireland is a fiction. And I just want to tie this in to the census. Because if you were to do a census of the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, there would be two different censuses, is my understanding. So is not that proof that it is more than a statelet in a sense? How does the census operate within Eora as a whole?
Well, it's funny you should say that. The census, people are talking about losing their national identity because of inward migration and asylum seeking and all that. Because people are saying we're way below pre-famine levels, pre-hunger levels. We're only at 5.9 million people. No, that's 5.9 million people for 26 counties, people. There's the 5.1, isn't it? 5.1 or 4.9, and then it's 4. And then it's 5.1 million or 5.2 million in the south, the 26 counties, and there's 1.9 million nationals in the north. Now, the north has held on till its Christianity, its Christian beliefs, in a large way. The chapels are bursting at the seams and the churches are bursting at the seams, both Protestant and Catholic. They have never lost their faith. It's still there, it's still alive and well. And the census, two censuses, well, you're doing a census for the United Kingdom to be part of the United Kingdom in Northern Ireland, where the census isn't given a true reading in the south. They're giving you pre-famine levels, so they're saying we must get pre-famine levels. We're already at it. There's 7 million odd people on this island already, both north and south. Take into consideration there was no border in this island when the famine happened. It was an entire island. So they took from the entire island the numbers. The other thing now that I said, the Good Friday Agreement was supposed to be a national referendum. It was two national referendums held in two different statelets which have no constitutional standing. So how can it be constitutional? How can it be written into law? It's only a figment of people's imagination accepted by a majority, therefore it becomes a working definition of the rule of law. It's only a definition to keep peace. But now we're 26 years past that, and they still have us in emergency powers. The First Amendment, a potentially far more serious matter arises in connection with Article 28.3.3. The First Amendment of the Constitution Act, passed on the day after the German invasion of Poland in 1939, gave to an expression time of war an artificially extended meaning, which was regarded the root of the immunity of the 1939 to 1946 emergency legislation from challenge. It is equally seen as part of the armour of the 1976 Emergency Powers Act. What happened in 1976? Well, 1974, you had the Dublin and Monaghan bombing. Since then, since 1976, they have put in a piece of machinery into that legislation that they can come back on a yearly basis and extend that emergency powers indefinitely. So we have been in a perpetual state of war since then. So that means that they're working out of statutory emergency provisions, which would be the Blue Book. The bill for this amendment of the Constitution Act was passed in English only. English only. And purported to alter the English version, only the English version of Article 28.3.3. Accordingly, in a period after the enactment of this amendment, there was a patent conflict between the Irish and English version of 28.3.3, inasmuch as the Irish version contained no reference to the artificially extended meaning time of war in applying 25.5.4 to this situation, therefore allowing the Irish to prevail. That extended meaning ought not to have been allowed to operate. The Second Amendment of the Constitution Act 1941 was bilingual itself, but written in a Roman font. They changed the font. Therefore, it cannot be law. As you hear there, they deliberately wrote the Constitution in Cloggaelic. Oscailga. Oscailga is the spoken language. Cloggaelic is the font. And that is the language text. Okay?
Okay.
Bilingual itself.
I don't mean to interrupt here, but 28, this emergency point here, Mark, is going to be addressed in a later episode.
It's going to,
Yes, that there's going to be a lot of focus in on that. But where this ties in is to Article 25. And Sarah, if you would like to provide a comment or read out 25, please do so. I know you've unmiked a couple times here, so please go ahead.
Okay, I was going to ask a question and get Mark just to speak on something very quickly, but maybe it'll be changing from the language. We'll move from that. I was going to read out something that De Valera wrote about the language. Mark, should I go ahead?
Yes. Let's stay on language.
Yeah.
Okay. So, De Valera said, if the choice was put to me between political freedom over the language or the language over political freedom, I would take the second choice. That's the language. Because that freedom that a nation loses, it is regained again. But the language that is lost, revival is not in store for her. If the language is lost, the trait and the force that nationality depend on are lost. Depending on our position, there wouldn't be before us then, but a small time until total failure for us as a nation and our fight sorry, it's very small and a bit blurry, and our fight to our country among other nations of the world lost. So basically what he's saying there is that we can always regain our freedom. But if we lose our language, it's lost forever, you know? So that was significant of what he said there. So Article 25.4.4, where the President signs the text of a bill in one only of the official languages, an official translation shall be issued in the other official language. And as soon as may be after the signature and promulgation of a bill as law, the text of such law which was signed by the President, or where the President has signed the text of such law in each of the official languages, both the signed texts shall be enrolled for record in the office of the Registrar of the Supreme Court, and the text, or both the text so enrolled, shall be conclusive evidence of the provision of such law. And 6, in case of conflict between the text of a law enrolled under this section in both the official languages, the text in the national language shall prevail. And that's out of the Blue Book. All right.
Okay. Mark, I just want to tie this in here. We have this point about the president. We know the first president of ERA was Douglas Hyde. Okay. Douglas Hyde founded the Gaelic League. And as we mentioned, the Gaelic League in 1893, their whole mandate was to restore Irish as a spoken language, de-Anglicization, and they talked about new nationalism. The Gaelic League influenced Sinn Féin because Sinn Féin was created by Arthur Griffith. And Arthur Griffith was influenced by the Gaelic League. This we know. And we know that Sinn Féin came into power in 1918 in the general election, where they won 73 seats. And Arthur Griffith had won at that point. So I'm just curious, as it relates to the language, as it relates to the Gaelic League, and Sinn Féin winning the election on that mandate in the early days of ERA, and where they are now, where Sinn Féin is now. Is there a complete divorce between Sinn Féin's earlier influences with the Gaelic League and where Sinn Féin is now? Do they still have a mandate of de-Anglicization, of restoring the English language? I'm just curious if you could further this point related to Sinn Féin and that.
Yeah, Sinn Féin just seem to be everybody's friends whenever it's necessary, to get basically what they want. Back in the day, Sinn Féin, and even today, you'll hear Mary Lou standing up and Pierce Doherty, you'll hear Jerry Adams, you'll hear them all addressing in Oscailga, first the Irish spoken language. But it seems to be they use as a weapon. Sinn Féin seem to have what it looks like to me as overtaken a lot of things and use these things as their weapon of choice to get their gain of support. Well, Sinn Féin say that they would never ever go into Westminster and take their seats because that requires taking an oath of allegiance to the King of England. Well, in 1922, Arthur Griffith and Michael Collins brought in the Irish Free State Constitution, and that already had an oath to the King and his heirs. And Arthur Griffith, if you look into the history of it, was going to sign that treaty before he even left the island of Era. And Sinn Féin have taken their seats. That was the thing about the Good Friday Agreement. There was a divide then put in the Republican movement. Why? Because Sinn Féin were going to take their seats in a UK institution called Stormont. Yes, they govern it themselves, but their ultimate boss is the UK government. It's supposed to be north-south administrative bodies, but should only had their first meeting there since that was set up a couple of months ago. We're now 26 years until peacetime. Sinn Féin, look, Sinn Féin are doing what they need to do to get a united Ireland. We've seen them shaking hands with the King of England when his mother died. So it's a change of the old guard, so to speak. So they knew with the census that Sinn Féin and nationalists are now the majority of the North. So the King quickly brushed aside the DUP and Jeffrey Donaldson and shook hands with Michelle O'Neill. I believe you're now the new largest party of the north of Ireland, or Northern Ireland. She says, yes, we are indeed. And he shook her hand. Well, that's like Amos Rothschild back in the day when he set up international banking. He says, I care not who controls the nations of the world as long as I control their finances. Well, Sinn Féin are now working at the behest of the Crown establishment and the Crown mining rights, the Royal Mines of 1705, and they own, under Ireland, the Crown establishment owns everything to do with Ireland, all the past acts of Ireland and all the ancient laws of Ireland. You see, it was the Kingdom of Ireland and Great Britain and the Commonwealth of Nations. Ireland was the kingdom. That's why you had all the castles and all about it, people. It's a very special place. The Hill of Tar and all, where kings and queens were crowned, you know, and anointed, like, you know. So, Sinn Féin today, are they the people that they were back then? No, not a chance. They've totally, they'll do and say anything to get what they want, by the looks of it, to become numero uno. And believe it, people, they're the only party on this island with a mandate for both North and South. I've found something here, okay? So, Declaration of Independence and Social Justice, vote yes on the 1st of July 1937. This is Sinn Féin's draft constitution, which was sent to them by with compliments from Fianna Fáil, okay? And it says this on it: scheme of organisation and rules. Right, hold on here now. Right, it says, whereas the people of Ireland never, this was written in Clogh Gaelic first, I'll get this put up. Whereas the people of Ireland never relinquished their claim to separate nationhood, and whereas the provisional government of the Irish Republic, Easter 1916, in the name of the Irish people, and continuing the faith made previous generations, reasserted the inalienable right of Irish nation to be sovereign and independent, and reaffirmed the determination of the Irish people to achieve it. And whereas the proclamation of the Irish Republic, Easter 1916, and the supreme courage of the glorious sacrifices of the men who gave their lives to maintain it, united the people of Ireland under the flag of the Irish Republic, which is the tricolour. And whereas on 21st of January 1919, following the general election of December 1918, and the duly elected representatives of the Irish people assembled in the National Parliament proclaimed the independence of Ireland and ratified the establishment of the Irish Republic proclaimed in 1916, thus founding the Irish Republic a democratic basis of free voters of the people of Ireland and Dáil Éireann as its government to be, the resolved delegates and representatives of the Irish People Convention assembled hereby declared the following to be the Constitution of Sinn Féin. The name of the organisation shall be Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin aims securing international recognition of Ireland and independence of the Irish Republic, having achieved her status, the Irish people by referendum freely choose their own form of government. This objective is attained through Sinn Féin organisation, which shall, in the name of the sovereign Irish people, deny the right to oppose the will of the British Parliament and the British Crown or any other foreign government to legislate for Ireland. B. Make use of any and every means available, render impotent the power of England to hold Ireland in subjugation by military force or otherwise. Article 28.3.3. C. Give an undivided allegiance and entire support to Dáil Éireann and the duly elected Parliament of Ireland in the exercise of all the legitimate functions and in its steps of legitimately taking maintain the public order, to provide a national defence, to secure the good government and to promote the general welfare of the whole people of Ireland. So that's what Sinn Féin declared back in the day when this constitution was brought in. They declared it to be their constitution. Why? Because it linked up with 1916, 1918 general election and 1919, 21st of January in the Mansion House in the Round Room, where the Convention of Ireland took place, bun:eṟacht was given, and that was a provisional government until such time that the people give themselves a written constitution. We done that. We voted on it on the 1st of July 1937 and enacted it into the full force of law, and it remains the full force of law, the full canopy of law, and the foundational law of the state till this very day, in law, legally and everything. It just needs proven in a court.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty much sums it up right there. It's a matter of little.
So this is another one here, okay, and this is coming out of J.M. Kelly, and I'll try and get this in here within the 2 minutes here, okay?
Good.
So tune in next week again, people. The final enactment of the Oireachtas legislative proposal in law. This made clear by Article 25.4.1, which declares every bill shall become a law as on from the day on which it was signed by the President, etc., irrespective of what repugnancy may exist. So it's up to the people to challenge. The people are the guardians of the Constitution, and so is the judiciary. And so either irrespective where there's repugnancy exists or not, it will become law. There, it's up to people to bring judicial review and bring judicial review under Article 15.4 that any act or legislation which is repugnant to this Constitution should be deemed null and void. You there, Sergeant?
I am. I was just about to jump in there and just remind people. So we've covered 7 and 8 today. That was our national flag. And the language. The language is so important, guys. Really, really important. When we're talking about Irish law, we have to understand the significance of the language, you know.
Excellent. All right. Well, I cut off there for a moment, but I'm back. And we're going to end on time, as per usual. Tune in next week for the next episode of the Irish Constitution Hour. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everybody.